Nie, godzina będzie, to jest jeszcze tak roboczo. Tutaj będzie godzina spokojnie. 30 sekund i startujemy z intro. Dobrze.
Ale nie ma, że woli nas okej.
Kwadransy uniwersyteckie. Ambulacje.
Dobry wieczór. Słuchajcie mnie. Dobry wieczór.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Agnieszka Lichnerowicz, and I will have a pleasure to moderate a discussion which is starting right now. I think it's a very interesting topic. I hope that we will be able to address this topic. So we will be talking about challenges between security and development. It's about migrations. So hopefully we will have a very interesting discussion. We have various perspectives, different political outlook, different institutions and experts. Małgorzata Kopka is the first speaker. She's the director of the European Policy and Migration Policy Program at the Institute for Public Affairs. There is also Magdalena Biejat, who is a deputy speaker of the Senate. She represents the Left Alliance. There is a Euro poseł representing Law and Justice Party, Waldemar Buda. He's from Łódź. And last but not least, Professor Paweł Kaczmarczyk, who is the director of the Center for Studies on Migrations at the University of Warsaw. This first part will be monopolized, dominated by me. I have prepared several questions. Hopefully, they will draw a map of opinions and perspectives on migrations, and hopefully will broaden the perspective we currently have. The diagnosis, the thesis I would like to start with is, can you hear me? So this perspective is as follows. Currently, the discourse and national practice and political practice on migrations are securitized. So discussions, emotions, proposals are focused on security. So I would like to start with the following question. I would like to hear your opinion on other perspectives that should be included in this debate, or which key perspectives should be included beyond the perspective on security of borders, social security, internal security. I understand that I should start. Thank you for the invitation. I hope that you can hear me. This is a comfortable situation for me. I can start with very new studies that have not been published yet, and I would like to share the results of the study with you. On the one hand, they confirm what Ms. Lichnerowicz has mentioned, the social expectations concerning the goals and directions of migration and integration policy for Poland should be focused on the protection of the boards. Then we should provide security, we should combat crime committed by foreigners. The study also demonstrates that the respondents, the so-called Polish people, males and females, also stress other aspects. They value them highly. They want to counteract illegal employment and abuse, financial abuse of foreigners. So, for example, Polish people want to have their jobs protected. Another high score was awarded to possibility of learning Polish by foreigners. It is expected that Poland should provide this option of learning Polish to foreigners. It is also addressed in other questions of our service on the desired characteristics, what is preferred by Poles. So foreigners should know Polish. High scoring is awarded to this question. So it's the state's obligation, according to the respondents, to provide this option for foreigners to learn Polish. And currently, this need is not met. There are discussions on the centers for integration of foreigners. We even hear that some of them are going to be closed down. In Lower Silesia, they are changed into the Polish culture centers. I think that Polish citizens also perceive other aspects apart from the security aspects, and they also expect that the state in different structures will provide different forms of integrations. Ms. Biejat, I'm not surprised that security is at the top of the list. Our awareness is shaped based on the type of discussion on migration, thanks to the politicians from the right to the central political parties, is focused on threatening citizens with migrants. What other perspectives are of key importance? Which of them should be included in the discussion? So this social cohesion should be underlined. In my opinion, the beliefs of Polish people, which are expressed in the study, that we should protect migrants on the labor market, that we should combat abuse of migrants, it's due to their own interest. If we agree to the abuse of migrants on the labor market, if we consent that they should be that their permit to live in Poland should be combined with the right to work, results in the situation that the position on the labor market is easier, that they can be abused easier by dishonest employers. So it results in dumping on the labor market, and it's unfair competition with Poles on the labor market, which impacts the overall labor market and the conditions of employment for Poles without the migrant status. Learning Polish language is another important issue, and the integration, social cohesion is of key importance. Rather by repeating cliches, what the situation is like in Germany or in France, we should consider how to organize it well in Poland. And this thinking process started during Law and Justice Party. The center of integration of foreigners was the idea of Law and Justice Party. And now we are leaving this project, and as a result, we follow the populist cliches, and we create some moods. Małgorzata Kopka suggests that Poles are interested in the discussion on the right to work. Political practice really doesn't show it, in my opinion. So can you see this option, this possibility that a politician who wants to be a politician should propose a debate on the labor laws in Poland. And I did say, I agree. We already have many migrants in Poland. There are different estimates. There are no precise numbers, but it's about 2.5 million people, mostly Ukrainians, Belarusians, and Russians. Every fourth Polish business declares that it employs the migrants, so they are already here. It's normal that people migrate. Poland, ethnic cohesion is a special moment in Poland. It is a result of the war of deeds by Putin and Stalin. So it's up to us what kind of conditions we will provide to the Polish society to make sure that migrants are not threats, they are a potential. So this is why we need the centers for foreigners integrations, good terms and conditions of employment, Polish language learning, introducing an obligation of learning Polish for all migrants people, and the hours of Polish language learning should be increased. There should be more such hours. Tell us about your opinion. Beyond security, should other aspects be included in this debate? It's surprising to look for other themes. I like this one. I want to talk about this one. Luckily, this debate has returned, because for a very long time politicians pretended that there is no such problem, that there is no problem, that should be more and more open to such phenomena. Is it sufficient? To me, this debate is accurate. First of all, we're talking about security, and this is the right approach. We can also discuss other elements. 2 years ago, I think most of you only agreed to the discussion how much more we should provide, how much more open we should be to migrants. Now we have a real situation. We've got an experience of the West, experience of global migrations. So we are very realistic. I have slightly different. The state can have different perspective, but we as politicians, we don't think of the private interest. We think of the public interest. So what within the next 5, 10, 20, 30 years will be appropriate from the perspective of the Polish state? So is security enough to consider migrations and the consequences? I will repeat, security is ranked as the first, and that's the right approach. It's unavoidable. Migrations will occur. We will have more and more migration in Poland. Of course, we have to integrate migrants. We have to teach them Polish. We have to teach them our culture. We need to try to make sure that the Polish citizens get used to this situation. Let's take a look at Ukrainian refugees nowadays. So many of them can they say that they feel bad? Yes, they can, the audience replies. I know Ukrainians, I cooperate with some of them, and I must say that nobody really looks at them at a different nation. The cooperation with them is very good. So privately, we are in public spaces. I think of some systemic solutions. Should we, in the perspective of 20 to 30 years, should we consider also other aspects apart from security? What kind of decisions should be made? But we should look at security at broader sense. And it is an element of security. We should also have cultural migration. So Ukrainians, nations that do not generate problems, we have met them abroad. I don't know if you know, 3 weeks ago, maybe a month ago, in Brussels, I work in Brussels, Somebody was shooting at my car. 10 bullets hit my car. So I went to the police station. I made a report, and policeman said, "Oh, you live in this area where such shootings take place every day." Well, I'm from Warsaw, from Łódź, from Poland. In my country, it is safe, so I didn't realize that somebody could shoot at my car. So we should learn these experiences. We should look at good experiences. Of course, there are some parts of the subway in Brussels that are quite dangerous. I think that we do not want to duplicate their mistakes. I do not belong to confederations or Brown Party, so we shouldn't forbid it. I don't want to say that Polish society should be one nation society. So I stand in the middle, at the center. Professor, you research migration. So I want to be provocative to what Mr. Buda said. Do you see some threats, some risks resulting from the situation that now the topic of migration is mainly focused on security? I will start with two aspects responding to the previous speakers. First of all, I would be very careful using terms such as countries that generate problems for an obvious reason. Very often, immigration happens because somebody does not have a good life, doesn't feel well in their own country. So we should avoid such statements. They are risky. Secondly, the experience of NGOs, Ukrainian NGOs in Poland, show that the last 6 months, this coincidence is not incidental. The last 6 months, it's a series of complaints who approach these organizations. So there is the language of hate that is present. I would like to start with security and social cohesion, but if we are discussing security, who really is against security issues? I would like to emphasize that the activists who support migrants also speak about security. The only problem is how we define security. Your definition was quite specific, and we should also decide whether measures we implement are adequate. So, stopping the process of submitting applications for
Dlaczego?
Dlaczego? Dlatego, że
asylum. So people who are in despair reach the borders. They have no chance of getting back to their homeland. So they have to live in Poland. We should accept the applications, process them. The second theme is the social cohesion. You have mentioned it, which in Polish public debate is used only as a catchphrase. Due to the social cohesion, we can accept 7,000 or 8,000 migrants, but we do not understand the cohesion. What does it mean? We cannot measure it, and we are unable to quantify it. We don't know what this cohesion means. So what is missing for me? I'm grateful that Madam Speaker has mentioned it. We miss a vision. We lack the vision of Poland as a country with different ethnic origins, different cultures. This is not just a temporary situation. This situation will be the permanent situation. So if we make the mistake Western countries made 20 years ago, actually there will be more and more challenges. Initially, we heard that we do not implement measures that help migrants to feel well in this society. It means that we also need to define the role of migrants in Poland. I would like to refer to what you have said about the vision. I completely agree with you.
But in order to be able to develop such a vision and, moreover, to communicate it, you need political courage to do it. You need courage to admit that it is a fact, yes, that migration exists, it will continue to exist, that Poland will be a host country for migrants. I do believe this is a reason for pride, because until recently we were the country of migrants. Today we are the country where people want to come to in order to live here. And a country that has a chance at this point in history to not make the mistakes that the Western countries made. So if at this time we focus on the safety of borders, security of borders, because, you know, nobody says that security should be omitted from the discussion on migrations. But if our entire narrative is fixated on alleged greater propensity for crime among the migrants, we put ourselves into a rabbit hole and we will emerge from it with the same problems that France or Berlin is facing today. We cannot pretend that the topic doesn't exist, deprive people of the right to political asylum, we cannot talk nonsense about how the migrants are about to implement Sharia law in Poland and pretend that the problem doesn't exist. I don't know if you wanted to respond to something, because a lot of people have responded to what you said. But we have the other topic in the title of our debate, and I was surprised you haven't mentioned this connection between migrations and economic development. We know what our economic model is. We know it is largely still based on cheap labor. Throughout my entire professional life, I hear that we need to abandon that model, to graduate from it towards greater investment in science, but I do not see actions that would lead to changing this model. So now, if main parties are focusing on limiting migration, both the current and the previous government was focused on limiting migration, how, in your opinion, shall we save the flagging economic development, flagging because of lack of employees? What, if not migrants, will help us to change the economic model or support development? Madam Speaker. Well, I believe that in a situation in which one company in four employs migrants, we can't really reduce migration. Well, you are part of the coalition that is reducing it. Yes, unfortunately, this is the case. Although I voted against suspending the right to asylum, I believe it was a mistake on many levels. Yes, but we are talking about economic migration, students and so forth. Well, frankly, migration is what it is. Ultimately, the migrants that will come here, regardless for reasons, we hope they are going to work. So dividing them into economic migrants and war refugees is artificial. If somebody has come here and lives here, if they are in the productive age, we want them to work and integrate, and we want their children to go to school and learn to speak Polish. And going back to the economy, the funny thing is that the current government is doing more or less the same thing as peace government. They say one thing and do another. Now you've done one thing, said another, and this is the biggest problem with it all, because in this situation, the processes that we should have under control are simply let loose. And we have data that says, and I believe that the only way is to stop fooling ourselves. And in as much I can, I try to be this voice calling for not fooling ourselves and not lying to the people. A large percentage of our GDP is due to work of the migrants. Every PLN we spend on an 800 plus, 5 PLN out of each 800 comes from Ukrainian migrants. ZUS is doing well, Social Insurance Institution is doing well. thanks to contributions from migrants. So let's take the step further. Let's ensure proper conditions on the labor market, curb the activity of temporary labor agencies. It is being done by a team that is headed by the left wing. Migration policy works well, but this is Canadian model. In my opinion, the philosophy of the Canadian model, which I recently analyzed, I do believe it is key. And in Canada, nobody is lying to themselves. That the people who come to them, they know that people who come to them will stay there. And the whole model is geared towards helping them find their place and find a job. And our mistake, we should treat migrants as people who bring benefits to our economy and better development. Well, yes, but in certain sectors and among certain employees, don't migrations lead to some people earning less because that is the payment salary practice of Polish institutions? Not in the entire market, but in certain sectors it is happening. Well, it is happening when we allow for migrants to be hired on different conditions than Poles. Recently in Polityka Weekly there was an article by Artur Domosławski about semi-slave labor of Colombians in temporary employment agencies. If we allow such pathologies to exist, and we do allow them to exist, it is a problem for Polish market and for Polish workers. Ladies and gentlemen, when we've had this surge of migrants from Ukraine, I was a Minister of Economy, and I can tell you how it influenced economy and the labor market. Ladies and gentlemen, migration is good, but worse than migration is excessive migration. Moderation in everything. On a certain scale, it helps. But exceeding certain numbers makes processes difficult. Have we exceeded that number? Well, the situation was abnormal when we had 1.5 million coming to the labor market in a period of 3 months. It's difficult to measure because it never happened before in history. But ladies and gentlemen, today we do not have a problem with employees from the perspective of needing. What about construction? Well, let's see data. Today, unemployment has risen again. Unemployment among young people is at a record high for the past 3 years. So I do see a threat for young people in this process. I already see information that say a young Ukrainian or whoever else takes the job of this young Polish person who cannot find a job and sees the problem in migration. I understand that your source is social media, but shall we ignore it? Yesterday I have seen a survey which has shown that among people up to 38, Confederacy has 38% support. In a moment we will wake up and it will be 70. So what about the economy? Well, if we have poor birth rate, the lowest in Europe, bar one country, we certainly need a natural, proper, coordinated level of migration. It is necessary also from the perspective of the labor market. But first, we as hosts have right to choose the groups of people and the areas and the persons who, from the perspective of the economy, are going to be useful. Well, we have been waiting for this strategy for 15 years. Your camp did not establish it. Well, we have created a program where we brought excellent IT specialists from Belarus. Later, there were inquiry committees, and Mr. Szczerba said that we brought spies in that program. So they have ruined the narrative around those people who have come here and whom we have helped. So we need to do it in a smart way. If in some area we need a group of people to support us, let's do it. In agriculture, there is a shortage. This should be resolved. So the state policy says we have a problem. Let's think where from people could be brought to the Polish labor market. But are we doing it? Of course not. Of course not. There is no policy. The migration policy, you know, they bragged about it, but look at what Polish migration policy is. The difference between absence of migration policy and having what we have today is nothing. It is all just 11 pages of empty words. So in your political experience, why is neither camp able to create decent migration policy for Poland? Well, it is very obvious. We cannot do things against the public opinion. What about the economy? Well, ladies, today somebody can say as an employer, I have no employees. I'm short, have a shortage of hands to work, and his employee will say, God forbid, because he is going to replace me. So these are the narratives we are dealing with. The employer who is an employee short thinks, well, maybe a migrant will be cheaper. And the guy who works there thinks, okay, this migrant guy will be a threat to me. And the state needs to weigh these arguments, assess them, and make rational decisions. Such decisions are not made. Today, everything is happening spontaneously. Whoever comes in is here. Whoever gets a job permit, they come. The employer writes, he invites a Hindi person to work, and the Hindi person comes in. Okay, so in referring to what you said, aren't the politicians letting us down? Because they are unable to conduct a rational debate for social cohesion and program. Yes, the politicians do fail. For the last 3 years of our government, we were not able to deal with migration policy if we had 2 million people coming in from Ukraine. I can't imagine sitting on a document and thinking, let's find them from some other countries, when we had this huge flow from a neighboring country at war. But today, situation has stabilized, and the policy should change. We no longer have 1 million people on the border. Well, yes, but is the political mechanism that when you feel the political interest, you are going to avoid a substantive debate? Well, I do believe that today it's a good moment for such a debate. It was stated here today, the migration is inevitable. If we don't plan it, it is going to happen anyway. It will just be beyond any control. I would like migration that is controlled, that we all agreed to. There is a political consensus. We have realized what are the needs, social needs, economic needs, and so on, and we do it. I don't want to monopolize the discussion because I'm interested in your opinions, but I just want to say 2 things that I found striking. One of them, treating migration strategy as if it was figuring out where to get people from. But migration strategy is much more. It is about how we build our relationship, what we can offer to people who are already here and to people who are going to come. Should Polish be compulsory for children at schools? How do we organize the labor market? How do we support local communities via the foreigners integration centers? We all know what happened to those. And that is migration strategy. The second short thing, migration policy is everything. Who do we accept, how we accept them, how we adapt them, how do we use them on the labor market, how they function in a system. Exactly. And the second thing is, I can no longer hear how politicians say that we are not going to do something against the public opinion. Let's accept the obvious fact that we are all aware of, and we all understand that we are the ones who create the public opinion. So hiding behind surveys and the social sentiments, when we actively create those sentiments, and unfortunately most politicians, including from the government, create the feeling of fear of migrants, let's not be surprised that we get those results in surveys. Well, the professor has 2 pages of notes, be warned. Yes, I would like to refer to what Mr. Buda said a moment ago, that if somebody wants to come to Poland, they come. That's not true. You can only come to Poland if you have a work permit, so if there is a need on the Polish market. So by definition, the model is based on demand for labor. Secondly, birth rate. Birth rate is very important, but we have to remember that the children that are born or not born, they will hit the labor market in 20 years. What is happening in the Polish labor market today is first and foremost the function of how the social structures are changing and the social advancement of Poles, of which we should be proud. The shortages on Polish labor market is in low qualification sector. This is the sector where Polish workers do not want to work, and they didn't want to work in that sector even when unemployment was reaching 20%. Like what? Abattoirs? Yes, abattoirs, agriculture, low qualification services. So we have researchers from the National Bank of Poland, from Warsaw School of Economics. They have calculated the presence of migrants, how it impacts the fiscal area. Do we have increased competition? Of course we do, because migration is a mass process. Does it have a real impact on our economy? Paweł Strzelecki did research, a few iterations of research. It may have an impact on pay. It may be growing slower than it would have without migrants. But the competition is truly illusory. Recently we had workshops with representatives of various industries, including gastronomy, catering industry, and they say openly when they look for employees, they do not advertise for Poles because they know that nobody is going to come in. Nobody is going to apply. That is just a bubble of Warsaw and Łódź. If we go to Turek, for example, where I come from, where we both come from, I listen to family, to what problems are, that somebody was laid off because a lot of Hindus has been brought over. So in large cities, the labor market is completely different. So it's different in Warsaw and Łódź than it is in Turek, Uniejów, and so forth. Well, I would like to correct what you said before. Now you have a herd. Before that, there was a surge. Let's be careful in what language we are using, because this language has impact on reality, including the attitudes that we have mentioned before. Now the element of support. I talked about social cohesion before, and we talk a lot about integration, but there is one problem that I also see from my perspective as migrations researcher. We do not devote enough attention to the hosting community. We make the same mistake that the British have made before Brexit. They were not able to identify the groups that absolutely have the right to feel threatened. They have the right, like you said, to feel a certain pressure. So if today we do not look at these groups, if we do not identify them and undertake political activity for these groups, we will fail on the matter of integration. Those could be less educated people, those could be residents of smaller towns. But let us not put everybody in the same basket, both immigrants and Polish workers. Let's be more analytical about it, understand the process, and let us not stick to emotions. Let's take some actions. I have not heard from you about any actions that would support Polish SMEs, that could feel competition from Ukrainian SMEs, because many of those are registered in Poland. Yes, if I may respond to a few statements here. I'm not a labor market expert, but I do participate in business conferences like EKG, EFNI, and so forth. And we always have the same discussion about migration, that employers want more employees. And those are certain tensions. I understand that as politicians, you have to manage these somehow, but it's not like we today are going to say, okay, we will not accept a single person more, because we know that there is economic pressure that simply requires new people in the labor market and they will not be Polish people. I wanted to point out certain tensions that Madam Senator has mentioned about labor market relationships. Our research shows that a very similar group of respondents sees, on one hand, that the foreigners contribute to economic growth. A similar group sees that they fill the gaps at the places of work, and a very similar group sees a threat that the foreigners would take jobs that could be theirs. This tension may accumulate in a specific workplace that Mr. MP has mentioned, Mr. Buda has mentioned, and as long as mainstream or democratic politicians, whatever you wish to be called, as long as we don't talk about that, as long as we do not give people the feeling that those tensions and that, on one hand, I know that it is necessary, on the other hand, I feel threatened or I was replaced, as long as we don't talk about this, as long those political forces are going to win that do talk about it. Unfortunately, they talk about it in a way that is not safe for either the migrants or the Poles.
So talking about security, I always pay attention to the language and choosing who should come to Poland. I know an example of somebody from North Africa. Actually, several people, a group of skillful IT experts came from North Africa. They came to Poland legally. Before the embassy of the country reached this group, only half of them remained. So again, I will repeat, highly qualified, good money, good salaries were paid to them. So good employment conditions were created. They knew where they were coming, and half of them who left, they left because they didn't feel safe in Poland. So if we talk about security, we need to create employment conditions which will convince them that they should come here, and then we should be selective who we would like to come. If there is adverse atmosphere, a negative atmosphere towards foreigners, this just influences our decisions, and it doesn't work like this. The effect is that even if we are reaching the group, the target group, that would be scored very highly, and they should be perceived as a desired group. So they will come here, but they will not stay here, and probably in their country of origin the news will spread that it's not worth coming to Poland. So let's remember this. Keep the mic, please. The time is flying. You started saying whether realistically, not in your dreams, but regarding all the circumstances, whether you perceive this opportunity of changing the narrative, broadening it, redirecting the narrative. So, for example, more care for the groups that can feel threatened. I am an optimist, but the coming election campaign fills me with pessimism. The political parties, some political parties will want to use this theme because it's an easy one and it's very effective to convince voters. Transferring the narrative to these actors who play an important and positive role, such as responsible employees. We have such employers in Poland. They should be shown as examples of success stories, that it is a win-win situation both for the employers and employees. This is one direction, and the other direction is local and regional governments, which are the places that a lot is happening. We have great examples in Poland where local policies, integration policies are developed by these local and regional governments, and they give hope that this situation will improve. Madam Speaker, your opinion, from your practice, realistic ways, how to broaden this narrative, how to redirect it. It's very hard. This is a difficult topic, migrations in Poland. And we are not doing very well with implementation of some specific integration-related policies. What can I say? I think that to redirect this debate from the discussion based on populist reactions from frightening citizens by Sharia zones, redirecting it to a sensible, rational discussion like today, I think it's not possible, simply. Why? It's not possible. As we've already heard during the Freedom Games, unfortunately, liberal politicians decided to race with the extreme right wing, and they are using extreme arguments. So we will not have a good discussion on immigration. Maybe they will never understand it. Maybe we have to wait. It's up to the voters to vote for the politicians who just care for more than just the opinion polls. I think that we are all the time in the same situation, but we need some smart integration policy. When people notice that it's smart, they will accept it. Is there a chance? For realistically, somebody was protesting that we will be selecting. Yes, we will select. United States uses such an immigration policy. They select who they want. So if we've got a gap in our economy, if we need the specific personnel, we will select them, and it will not cause tensions. And if we select immigration, that will be a competition to Polish employees. So we need a smart policy. Is there a chance for this policy? Yes, there is. Madam Speaker, when you're talking about Sharia, I don't know who is threatening citizens. You are raising arguments that someone else is talking about it. It redirects the discussions to the levels of populism, demagogy. So there is it's not a smart discussion on integration. We hear of 33 rapes per day. So women are victims of such situations. So using such extreme arguments in this debate will not provide any development. In Poland, victims of rapes are victims who are raped by their family members, so usually by Poles. Okay, in France, rapes are mostly committed by migrants. Madam Speaker, let's close this topic. It all sounds great and responsibly what Mr. Buda said, but the problem is that you cannot separate political discourse from building smart migration policy. That's the problem. That's what we are talking about. If there is a consent that we should use populist arguments that lead us nowhere, there will be no space for such a smart discussion. This is a challenge. So develop smart policy, and then we will see how citizens respond. There is no smart policy. I agree with you that there is no such policy. From the perspective of a researcher, I have an appeal to politicians. Instead of managing emotions, you should start managing processes. This is my appeal. I'm not going to say whether there is a chance. I'm going to have a quiz, a small quiz. I will read out 2 sentences: integration of Ukrainian refugees or remuneration, economical refugees, and resolving crisis on Polish-Ukrainian borders require smart solutions and involvement of all citizens. We also need to respect dignity and rights of all human beings. They cannot be limited or suspended. It requires good decision based on knowledge regarding all the aspects and migration topic and relations of Poles with migrants. It should not lead to disputes and fights. Who has said it? It's the position of the Polish episcopate. Of Polish bishops. It was adopted several days ago, and hopefully it will be announced in Polish chances. There's a question whether there is a chance. Maybe there is one. This is my view. I thought it was my statements. I am the author. Well, I agree that you fully support this document. That's excellent. So maybe there is a space to search for some good solutions, because we need such solutions. Maybe it's for the first time that the bishops are announcing the right position. 10 minutes left. So with all respect to the audience, please make your questions brief. I can see 6 hands raised. So 1 minute each. So I've got a mic. I will use it. I have a request. When you start developing this migration policy, do not ignore the group that is forgotten: students. It's a very attractive group. Nobody remembers this group. Most of universities, for example, medical universities in Lublin, I'm from Lublin, we've got 16,000 students who they are our additional inhabitants, and I'm not sure whether each Polish medical university has studies for foreigners, but students come, they pay a lot of money to be able to study in Poland, in English. Nursing is very popular. So they didn't take places from Polish students. They were studying, paying with the money of their parents. They were paying for their accommodations. They were buying things here. And let's say 3-year students, now they have to prove that they are able to come to Poland. So the students who would like to study in Poland, they have to provide very strange documents. And actually a student from Canada has to submit a certificate in English language. Today I heard of a dramatic situation of the medical university in Lublin. It's quite interesting that the number of foreign students have declined dramatically. It's very interesting news. Good evening. I will do my best to be short. In summer, in Opole, we had a press conference of the national movement. They were protesting against not just the Center of Foreigners Integration. They were protesting, and I can not remember when I had this déjà vu when Mr. Waldemar Buda was saying in the context of Turek, they were using the same arguments, identical arguments. So I wonder how many immigrants are coming to such small towns. I think they really reach the bigger cities. So I'd like to ask whether Waldemar Buda really thinks that this is the right direction to reach your voters, quoting narrative used by Confederacja Party. One comment, 2 comments, and 1 brief question. When we're talking about accepting refugees, we have the procedures to control the process of migration. If, according to you, you were letting them come to Poland in mass and you were breaking the law, there is the procedure. Our law is not that bad. When we talk about recommendations, actually we've got some special group employment schemes, and then the conditions of employment will be the same as the conditions for Poles. And there is a question. concerning this debate. What do you think of the migration pact? I think I spoke with Mr. Buda about this scheme. It's not about having mass numbers of migrants. It's the EU. It's the EU program, and it's the left wing that criticize this scheme. Joanna Konka. I would like to say one comment. I'm a member of a group of volunteers. We look after refugees who stay in the centers for foreigners, first closed and then reopened. So many of us hosted migrants from Africa, Middle East. They lived at our homes, and we never ever had problems with them, even if a woman was hosting a man. Refugees do not make any problems. Most of them want to integrate, they want to follow our rules, they want to learn Polish. It's a big problem. We buy books with our own money. They have limited access to integration. So we run these integration groups. According to the police statistics, refugees, foreigners in Poland commit only 5% of crimes, and they are mainly road crimes. I'm very stressed, so I will read out my question or comment. I have noticed in this discussion, when we were talking about the language, I think language is very important. I noticed that you ignore the problem of accommodation. I lived for a while in Sweden for 7 years. Most of the residents were Swedes, very rich Swedes, and I didn't sense this increase of threat in Sweden. Recently, I was working on a paper, and I found out that in my district, Aquin, the level of migrants is only 20%. In Angaret, in another residential district, there are some 60% of migrants, so more than half of the citizens are migrants, and you can sense this danger there. So it is harder to integrate with the society when you are not in touch with this society. Many women, most of the migrants are Arabs, and this patriarchate-based system is typical. So women stay at home, which is translated into economic gains. So what do you think of the social housing system that would make sure that would prevent development of such ghettos in Poland? Hello, Agnieszka Barańska. I've got a question to Waldemar Buda. I recently watched a program on gangs in Berlin. They are the multi-generation gangs, so Chechnya citizens and Arabic males are in these gangs. They commit numerous crimes. They are then in prisons, and I am afraid that such individuals will want to come to Poland. Maybe they are already here, and they will constitute a threat to me, to my relatives and friends. So can you see a way, a method which on the one hand will ensure security to citizens, and on the other not to discourage people from starting employment here in Poland? So is there a way you can propose? Professor would like to start.
Yes, I was always last, now I will go first. Well, we would need support for migration. I think we would need a separate debate here. I would like to start with the matter of students, because it is the best example of the traps of the security focused discussion. there was one paragraph that said that on one hand we want to international Polish science and on the other control the inflow of students. It is much easier to audit, it would be much easier to control or audit the universities where there was abuse than to stop students coming in. Housing policy, I believe, is absolutely indispensable. What started in Poland after 2014 or 15 was complete liberalization of migration, and I call it privatization of migration. The benefits of migration were captured by Polish entrepreneurs, but the costs were paid by the entire public. And no care was given to reasonable housing policy that is of key importance in migration processes. That brings me to the third issue, what Piotr Szumlewicz said, the matter of collective agreements, collective bargain. My observation is that if we look at the labor market and the migrants, it shows like a lens all the problems of the Polish labor market. Let us not be surprised that foreigners are abused and exploited, because Polish employees are also abused and exploited. Until we fix Polish labor market, we can't expect the situation of migrants to be better. That's my response. Thank you very much. Just a few minutes, but you know, the shorter the better. Well, your first question was, are we going to follow the example of the nationalists from Opole? I think we have arrived at a point when we understand what the problem is. If we ignore, ridicule, omit, and not take into consideration the arguments and sensitivities raised by everybody, we will arrive at a dead point. One side will say everything is great, full migration, and the nationalist approach, no migration, and there will be nothing in between. We need to take into account all the arguments to not allow any social bombs to be detonated. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm telling you what my parents tell me in a small town where, you know, people work and somebody was laid off and somebody was hired. Let's not say from the perspective of Łódź and Warsaw that it's not happening. It is happening. It is real. On Wielkopolska tollway, the lady opens the booth, gives me the ticket and says, "Oh, MP, my friend was hired and foreigners were employed instead of them. Do something about it." You know, we can refuse to talk about it, but if the public communicates with us and tells us such things, we have to do something about it, because if we ignore it, the problem will grow so big that Confederacy will have 70% support. Politicians are not divided. The public has different opinions, and we should hear all of them. As for collective bargaining, yes, of course, the idea should be that at the employer level, everybody was offered identical conditions regardless where they come from. But I have a feeling that it is the employers who are strongest against collective bargaining, because they want to treat foreigners differently, right? Smaller salaries and so on. And as for Berlin and Sweden, well, I went to Stockholm myself many times, and I heard about the districts where migrants moved in, normal Swedes moved out because the prices of property dropped. But it is true that the level of crime among migrants is greater than their share in society. It is verifiable. And if we talk about rapes in France and in Sweden, there is a greater percentage than the share in society. So even if it's 20%, the share is greater. There may be certain categories. I'm not saying it's all of it, but let's not say everything. I mean, we all probably want to protect women and children. Well, as women here, we do not agree with you on that matter. Oh, you don't want to be protected. Okay. But my first argument about safety is that women should be able to walk streets at night with a child. That's the priority for me. And I think I have run out of time. Well, yes, I would suggest using some slightly different rhetorics. This is Poland. Let's talk about Poland. Statistics in Poland are such that share of migrants in total amount of crime committed in Poland is lower in percentage terms than share of migrants in society. So migrants commit fewer crimes than Poles, and those are crimes similar to those committed by Poles. Petty larceny, traffic violations, and so on. Much greater and important variable is the social and economic situation of the person. Social exclusion, of course, does have a contribution, but it doesn't matter what's the color of one's skin, what country they came from, and what is their religion, but their socio-economic situation. And now we go back to the discussion, what can we do to make social cohesion better and to prevent situations like were described here, forming ghettos. Of course, good migration policy should include housing policy. Of course. The good thing happening in the current government is housing policy, and it includes a plan to assure a good social mix, to prevent creation of ghettos, but to have people of various socioeconomic status live across all the districts. And it is possible. Of course, local governments have to be involved. Appropriate policy has to be created, but it can be done. So it's a definite yes, and I fully agree with what Professor said about the labor market in Poland and collective bargaining and everything. What I disagree with, or no, let me rephrase it. I do believe it is in the best interest of employers to improve those conditions, because we have a lot of honest employers who today lose in the labor market because they lose against people who treat their employees unfairly. Junk agreements, poor labor market conditions, hiring people in the black, and so on. So it's in the interest of Polish entrepreneurs that we civilize that. Thank you. Thank you very much for questions to me. It is always a paradoxical situation that in the country in which so many people, vast majority, feel safe, and all surveys, not just mine, show it, Poles feel so very safe in their neighborhoods. And it is strange that we talk so much about safe threats to safety. This is really raising emotions because we feel safe in our places of residence every day. We would like to keep it that way. In order for it to remain that way, everybody has to do their job. We have a distribution of tasks and responsibilities in terms of migration. Both the state and its structures and its officials, the long lines in labor offices, voivodeship labor offices where the stay is legalized. This also depends on how underfinanced those offices are and how poorly equipped and how short on human resources. So it is important that this legal stay, that is so important for all of us, well, but in Łódź, Visa's center was supposed to be created. It was described as the greatest scandal. Well, yes, I'm saying that everybody has a job to do, and the state should strengthen the institutions that control the labor market, the relations on the labor market. Local governments have their job to do. Schools have a huge job to do. Employers, we have already mentioned, but each one of us as well, in every day. Let us not fall for a narrative that another person is a threat to us just because they have a different nationality recorded in their passport. Thank you very much. I apologize for time pressure, but we were almost able to finish on time. Thank you for the time discipline and thank you for participating.
PL Music Video Awards, festiwal polskich wideoklipów, spotkania, projekcje, warsztaty, do tego gala finałowa i wybór najlepszych polskich teledysków. Zapraszamy do Łodzi 4-6 grudnia, szczegóły na www.plmva.com.
look like this, or like this. It is threatened, but it is our responsibility to protect it. For each person, it means something different. But when we reach it, we all know what it looks like, what it sounds like, or how it feels. And if we all fight for it, it will eventually bring us together. Freedom.
Polska Stolica Kultury. Jesteś na miejscu.
Kiedy zapala się lampka on air, to jest najlepszy moment.
Nie ma jednego instrumentu, który lubię najbardziej. To zawsze jest kontekst.
Uwielbiam sport bez obrazu właśnie z tej perspektywy, kiedy to ja mogę ten obraz kreować.
Pusty stadion nie jest cichy. Tam gołębie startują.
Jak ja bym chciała, żeby z mojego radia było słychać "Będzie okej".
Ono może być cichutko w tle. Radio, które jest przyjacielem tego odbiorcy, przyjacielem człowieka.
W kinie doceniam prawdziwe emocje.
Na boisku pilnuję czystej gry.
W kuchni poszukuję autentycznych smaków.
Ale w internecie jest to trudniejsze.
W internecie wobec informacji też trzeba być sędzią. Dezinformacja jest jak bramka strzelona ze spalonego.
Więc jeśli coś we mnie wzbudza emocje, daję sobie czas. Może ktoś specjalnie chce mnie zagotować, bym uległa manipulacji.
Filtruj informacje.
Sprawdzaj ich źródła.
Nie masz pewności? Nie udostępniaj.
Postaw na czysty przekaz.
Do PKO Banku Polskiego przenosi się nowy klient.
Weź się. Przenieść się jest easy. Czaruś, wytłumacz.
Otwierasz konto w PKO Banku Polskim i masz święty spokój. Przeniosą kasę i zlecenia stałe, a pracodawcę poinformują. Ogarniesz to przez internet. Bo to dobry bank jest.
Ej, widzę cię. Wolisz w oddziale? Dawaj do nas.
Otwórz konto w PKO Banku Polskim i dołącz do 12 milionów klientów. PKO, twój bank polski.
Myślisz, że to ktoś wyjątkowy. Miłośnik kultury. Kto sypie cytatami z pamięci. A to może być ktoś, kto na wakacje pakuje książkę. Tę samą co rok temu. To możesz być ty. Bo czytanie nie jest dla wybranych. Jest dla wszystkich. Podziel się tym.
Well, Atlas Network is, as the name suggests, a network, and it's global. We work all around the world. We're based in the U.S. It's a network, that is to say, organizations that share common values of limited government, of free enterprise, personal liberty, of personal responsibility.
Atlas Network provides training and support to help build capacity, but most importantly, we give our partners the tools they need to be successful.
Do zgłoszeń? Gotowi? Start!
Ja zgłoszę bibliotekę!
Ja, pierwszy basen w gminie.
Ja amfiteatr naszej orkiestry. Wszystko w waszych rękach. Co powstanie dzięki wsparciu totalizatora sportowego w twojej okolicy? Zgłoś obiekt sportowy lub kulturalny. Wejdź na stronę gdygrasz.pl, bo gdy grasz, wszystko gra.
So we just had an emergency landing in Poland, in Łódź. Yeah, don't worry guys, we won't be here for long. Lads, hello vlog. So I know we were supposed to show